That was really creepy. The music was all weird and strange, and there's this guy who's still laughing for some reason. That was really creepy. I don't know why. It could have something to do with the fact that we're in a very spooky season right now. We had Halloween yesterday. We are recording this over again because we tried this on Friday. This is our 13th episode of The Podcast is Real, only tonight it's really live because here we are on YouTube doing The Podcast is Real. And I got to tell you, being the 13th episode, everything went wrong. My co-hosts couldn't even make it. One of our guests couldn't connect to the service that we're using. The sound quality, something happened with the board and it just went wackadoo and it sounded all buzzy and awful. I had a great talk with my guest, but it just didn't work out. So we get a do-over, and here we are. It's Sunday night and we're doing 13 and a half, I guess. So I want to invite, first of all, onto the stage with me here, one of my co-hosts, Aaliyah. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
It's so good to see you on. What did you do for Halloween yesterday?
Well, surprisingly, there was a lot of people in my neighborhood that were celebrating. So I took my nephew to go trick-or-treating, and he was a cute little alien.
All right.
Yeah. What did you do?
What did he dress as?
He was
kidding. I'm joking.
Oh.
I thought your nephew was a cute little alien. I was trying to make. It was a dad joke.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't get it.
Did you dress up at all or no?
No, I just wear like dog ears, but my dad did dress up.
Oh, what did he dress up as?
So he has a few costumes. He has a Scream costume, and I actually wanted him to come on and scare you guys, but he has it's like a goblin-ish mask, but the goblin has a really long beard and a mullet in the back, and
a goblin mullet. Very cool. All right. Well, if he's around, bring out. We'd like to see the goblin mullet. So if you want to bring him on later towards the end of the show, we'll do that. Also with us on the show, my other co-host, Utah, with his uke. He is ready to go.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight. For my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise, he did the mash. He did the monster mash.
I thought you were going to do the skeleton song. You had me all confused now. You surprised me. Ooh. There we go. Spooky skeletons.
Spooky, scary skeletons jumping all around. Spooky, scary skeletons. I don't know the rest of the words except spooky, scary skeletons. It's a great song. Came from 20s Disney, and that's all I got for you tonight.
There you go. Hey, well... We were talking about beforehand. Does anybody actually know how to do the monster mash? Like,
no. See,
the song is all about it. But at least the Hokey Pokey tells you what to do. The monster mash.
We have no idea what the monster mash sounds like. We don't have no idea what it looks like. Like we were saying, it's like Tenacious D's song. It's the greatest song ever written, but this is a tribute.
Yeah, this is not the greatest song in the world.
This is only a tribute,
and apparently that's what the monster mash is.
I don't know. Somebody's got to talk to Dracula there and figure out what exactly was going on there.
When I started, you really got me thinking about it. That song is not all it's cracked up to be.
Oh, it's good. We just don't know what he's singing about.
So, as it happens, though, we've got a couple of people who actually have done a lot of research and know a little bit about monsters on the show tonight. So maybe they can show us how to do the monster mash.
Oh, I hope so.
So, but yeah. As some of you may know, we've been giving away a book for the last few weeks called Musings on Monsters. There it is. Utah's got a copy in his hot little hands there. And it's edited by our good friends Lou Tambone and Rich Handley, who are going to be on the show with us tonight. We actually have been giving that book away. I gave it away on Friday. I announced the winner, but it was so terrible that
nobody
even if somebody
could
was watching, they're like, who was that? So, I've already emailed the winner. I haven't heard back yet. But I've emailed the winner, notified them that they've won, and all they have to do is get back to me with their address.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll reply after the show. No,
it's not you. You're not eligible. And you've got one in your hand anyway. Why would I give you another one? So and we will drop ship that right to them. They just need to get, if for some reason you happen to be watching tonight, check your email. If your email starts with the Joshed or the Joshed, if it's medieval times. Maybe.
But I want a second one so I can keep this one in the box.
So here's what we're gonna do. I've emailed them. Hopefully they'll get back to me and we'll be able to get them a copy of the book. It's so fun. I'm only about halfway through, and then I loaned it through Kindle to Aaliyah, and then Aaliyah couldn't make the show and we couldn't loan it back so I could finish the book. So I only am going to ask them about the first half of the book when they come on.
I admittedly only read their essays and then the foreword.
Just theirs?
And then a couple, we'll get into it, but for me, kaiju was the thing. So.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go. All right. So let's just get them on the show and let's start talking to them. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Lou Tambone and Rich Handley. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
We're so glad you're here. Rich is in the monster protection program.
Yeah.
He doesn't want me to be located.
We've disguised his voice, and Rich is not his real name.
This is not what he sounds like at all.
I'm not even a writer. I'm a banker.
There you go.
This might be what he looks like. We don't know.
Where do I claim that book that I won?
Contact Sequart.
Oh, okay.
So, welcome to the show. Very excited. So last time we had you on the show, we talked about another book that you guys had written, and it was about a very dark subject, a chain smoking, magic wielding, demon hunting, just depressed, angry guy named John Constantine. And now we're talking about monsters. So my first question for you both is, why so serious, guys? Why all this darkness that you guys are writing about right now? What's up? What's up? Are you okay? Should we get you help?
We have dark souls.
That's a great series of games on the PlayStation, but that's another episode.
It is.
Yeah, I actually don't have that. I don't have dark souls apparently. Yeah.
But actually, what I really want to ask you is, since this book is about monsters, and I absolutely adore what I've been reading so far. It's really taken me back. It's very nostalgic. I feel like I had very similar childhoods to some of the writers I'm reading, because some of the memories, taking out scary books from the school library.
Yeah.
That I totally did that. I remember checking out books. And then in high school, I checked out books on parapsychology. I totally thought I was going to be a Ghostbuster someday. I thought that was going to be a thing that was going to be a big part of my life. It's not at all, but I was reading those books. But yeah, a lot of cool nostalgia in there. But and I think it's because, I do love these monster movies so much, and obviously they're hugely popular. Why do we love monsters so much, guys?
Yoda, you want to go first?
That's the child.
Good.
Oh no.
So I guess they're both in the witness protective.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
That's all for you, Rich. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think there's I think the best way to answer that is to say, why do we go on roller coasters? Why do we sit around hey, he lives. Nobody, I guess, under the age of 30 does this. But why do people above the age of 30, when they were kids, why did they sit around campfires and tell ghost stories? Why do we watch movies that scare the crap out of us? It's the same reason. There's an adrenaline rush. There's a feeling of being out of control, knowing deep down that you're actually not. And I would argue that monsters are safer because they don't exist, whereas a roller coaster could throw you 150 feet if your belt broke. But why? I guess because we want to feel alive, and nothing makes you feel more alive than being afraid that something that's not alive is right next to you.
That's a good point. And Lou, I saw your reaction. That was almost the same thing that you said on Friday. You agree with that, right? Would you say it's about the adrenaline? Well, we lost Lou.
Lou apparently disagreed completely. And
he's like, forget you, Rich.
Well,
this is our last collaboration
like I am gone.
That was a horrible answer.
I could tell his connection was getting bad.
His audio was cutting out.
He's almost back in. Hold on, here he comes.
I hacked him and I kicked him out. Oh,
there he is. He's back. Stop talking about him. Here's it.
Oh, and that's how a bill becomes a law. Oh, hey, Lou. Didn't see you there. We're just talking about bills and laws.
He's just a Lou. Yes, he's only a
Lou sitting on the steps of Capitol Poo.
We thought you disagreed with them so terribly that you just disconnected.
Yeah, good timing on that.
He stole my answer from the other day. That's why.
Yeah,
I talked about specifically about the roller coaster. Yeah, the thrill of being scared is something that we all like, and it's a little bit of escapism from the realities of the world. And we also like monsters, I think, because they reveal a little bit about ourselves as well. There's a lot of hidden stuff under the hood going on, like a lot. So I think we relate to them in a way.
Well, all right. So when I was, say, 2 years old, and my parents have actually like 8mm film of this, and they put it on VHS and then also the DVD. So when I was 2 or 3 years old, for my birthday, my father
I'm waiting for the Blu-ray myself.
Well, no, it's a whole remastering process, and there's not enough data for 4K.
I have it in Betamax.
Damn you. And so my father got me this like mechanical battery powered Donald Duck. So this is 1974, all right, 73, 74. He's got this battery powered mechanical Donald Duck that walks. It's on wheels, but it walks, and then it quacks really loud, and it's got all the whizzing gears and stuff. So it sounds horrible. It sounds like, this is what I remember it sounding. For my birthday, he turned it on and aimed it toward me in our little living room back in Taiwan. And I was scared crapless. I was screaming and crying and running away and kicking it. And so what does my father do? My loving father does? He picks it up, aims it towards me again, laughing. And here comes Donald Duck attacking me again.
Yes.
And so the point of all this is that, so Donald Duck was arguably the first monster in my life that I remember consciously. And it took many years for me to get over this weird, irrational fear of Donald Duck. So my question to you, Lou and Rich, musers of monsters, what are your first monsters that you remember?
If you don't mind, I'm going to take it first. Just because earlier Utah. Sorry, Utah, you had mentioned that you're all about the kaiju, and that's my answer. Gojira. Yeah, from very early age, I used to watch Toho's movies, and I at the time I had no idea that they were badly edited and that they bore very little resemblance to what they actually were. But that was my introduction at a very early age, and it just sort of grew from there.
Very cool.
Lou, I hand you back your thunder. Sorry.
Thank you. I actually, because you took the Godzilla thing, because I was going to talk about how, we grew up watching them on the holidays around this time of year, Thanksgiving, and, they used to show all the movies all the time. So when I was
right, I like the UHF channel, right?
Well, yeah,
I think channel 11, right? Or is it 7? I think.
It was 40. It was 43 for me growing up.
Yeah, same for me.
PIX, maybe, I don't know who it was. But,
I know that they did, and also Channel 7 and the 4:30 movie had a Godzilla week too.
Yeah, lots of stuff like that. So for a kid, that's kind of watch like Monster Island and all that stuff. King Kong, right. Joe Young.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, but we're gonna go. I'm gonna take it a little step further. When I was a kid. At some point, and I don't know the age of time, probably in the 70s, early 70s when I was little, Nosferatu was on television somehow. And
Nosferatu.
Boy, that guy scared Olaf. He scared me, man. I was like,
that's creepy.
That was creepy.
Yeah. So I'll go, since Rich took the Godzillas, I'll take Nosferatu.
Yeah,
I suspect that that he was scary without his Olaf makeup. I have a feeling he walked out for dinner and his family screamed. I just get that feeling.
Right? Why did you take your makeup off? I did. It's in here.
You were broke up there, Lou. We didn't hear what you said.
I said he had more makeup. That was just how he looked.
Yeah, that's. So, Aaliyah, now your first monster. I know it's funny that it seems like we're some of us tie our first scary monster experience to our fathers. What does that tell us? But isn't yours about something with your dad too? That you told us once before?
Isn't it your dad?
Yeah.
You would think that man just loves to pick on me. I still live at home, so I get it all the time. I feel like I haven't had time to really grow out of that phase because I still get it. But when I don't know if this necessarily counts as a monster, but the very first scary movie that I had ever seen was Scream.
Okay.
And so Scream and It, those were the two. And my dad had, so not only did he have the Scream costume, but he had the clown costume as well. So he used to, sometimes he would stand outside of my window at night and would tap on the window with one of those masks. And but Scream, now that I think about it, that was the one. And all I could think of now to this day is like when it's like the mirror scene, like the room full of mirrors. And maybe I'm like distorting it in my brain because it's been so long, but I think that's what it was like he was chasing this girl through like a, almost like a carnival, like at a carnival, they have like the rooms full of mirrors.
The Hall of Mirrors or whatever.
Yeah. That's all that I can think of in my head. And
I'll be right back.
No, don't say that.
No. Yeah. So I think that was like my first monster, but I don't think that you can, necessarily constitute that as a monster. Just
well, I would say It definitely is, right?
It definitely is.
And Tim Curry was just absolutely. I mean, it was kind of a terrible miniseries. Now that it doesn't age well if you watch it now.
Tim Curry was fantastic.
He was phenomenal. Yeah, he was very
what
good.
What you have is a miniseries that had some isolated parts that do stand up, and some that just make you smack your forehead. But some good performances, and his Pennywise is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That and the scene in the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah,
the food.
Tim Curry's clown still scares people to this day. There were people who thought that there's no way they could top that in the new movies and stuff. And
they float, Georgie.
Oh my god,
that's pretty good.
That's
they all
Tim,
float down.
Mr. Curry. Yeah. Mr. Curry, is that you?
And your camera's not working, so the fact that you just did that, everyone is now picturing you as the clown from
Pennywise.
So.
Tim Curry Pennywise.
In fairness, people usually picture me.
Oh my gosh. I got to say one of my earliest memories of seeing monsters on TV and on movies. It was a Universal monster, but it wasn't even a scary movie, but I remember being young enough that I was creeped out by it. Same thing though. They always play these on Saturdays. It was the Abbott and Costello movies, and I saw Abbott and Costello Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And when Dracula is like, opening that coffin and closing it, and Costello was like, it's so funny. And I'm watching it now. I just literally was watching it earlier before we came on today. I decided to watch it again. And I'm like, it's so silly. Like, that's the point, was to be funny.
Oh yeah.
But I remember being like, who is that guy in the coffin? He's scary. Like, that's not cool. Like, this is not cool. Like, of course, and why won't Abbott listen to him? There was clearly danger. So
is that because when you were a kid, you were watching it as an Abbott and Costello movie, not as a Universal monster movie?
Probably, yeah.
Because the average Abbott and Costello movie had adults playing kids, it wasn't, you weren't expecting a vampire in your typical Abbott and Costello movie.
No.
So an umpire maybe, but
right. And a baseball team.
I see what you did there. I like that. Yeah, that was good.
Third base.
But yeah, that was the earliest. I remember being just totally creeped by, and I don't think I even knew what a vampire was. Like, you know what I mean? I was so little that it was like I didn't know who Dracula was. Like, that wasn't a thing. I hadn't seen the Dracula movie. I just know there's a guy in this box. Why is the guy in a box? And he's
why is a guy ever in a box?
Why put him in the box in the first place?
Yeah, come on, get out of the box.
And he's totally creeping out poor Costello, who I just adored because I loved those movies as a kid. So I think that might have been my first monster, other than Cookie Monster or any of the guys.
Lou, why don't we have a Cookie Monster essay?
Oh, you said not to do it, so I said.
Oh, is that why? Okay.
I was fully behind it. You did not want it. You were adamant.
Well, that joke fell apart. Thanks, Lou.
The dark history of Cookie Monster.
It's like the joke. It's just, why isn't?
It's like behind the music, except for monsters. Behind the monsters, Cookie Monster.
Why not the vampire from Sesame Street?
Well, why not the count? You can't count on him.
You say he doesn't count.
He doesn't count.
But I did. But he does.
He should have been in one essay, two essays, three essays.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They had to go there.
Okay, so we talked about some of our first monsters, but tell us a little bit about some of the monsters that are in your book that people will be able to meet.
Richard or Lou is just the book model down there. Every time you mention the book, he just holds it up and give us the.
I'm the Vanna White in this scenario.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, but make sure you show the side because the first time that Yuta held it up, I thought it was a very slim book, and then he.
Yeah, right. This is a quick reading. No,
it's a nice hefty book. It's got a lot of stuff in there. It's very good.
So what are some of the monsters?
We're going to be treated to, I'm going to just look at the contents here. We're going to be treated to...
he doesn't remember what monster.
He wasn't involved.
I only read this thing about 6 times.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
He only remembers his essays.
Yeah.
So,
he didn't read the other ones, so...
It's only about Cookie Monster, that's it.
Yeah.
It's only about the Black Lagoon. That's the only important one.
Using your cookie.
That counts, really. So all the Universal stuff. So you got your Draculas, your Frankensteins, your Wolfman, your Mummy, your Black Lagoon, all that. But interestingly enough, we touch on the devil himself in a part, devil movies. We also are going to go into Rich will talk about this, I'm sure, at some point. Dark Shadows, very successful TV soap opera-ish horror thing.
Thanks to his posts on Facebook, I need to watch it now.
I know.
Yes, you do.
A lot of action, I'm sure. We talk about magazines and books. We talk about, horror magazines and horror publications. I know it's not monsters in general, but we talk about that. We talk about some of the horror hosts, like Vampira and Zachary and people like that. We talk about Cat People, the movies. We talk about, Rich has a essay you're going to love about all the Godzilla films and the Toho stuff.
It's a good essay.
Yeah, all the kaiju stuff. We're talking about the TV stuff, the Munsters and the Addams Family, stuff like that. And then there's different flavors of the Universal stuff. There's Dracula in the Hammer horror films, not Universal per se, but when Hammer Horror was making. So we're gonna get into that. There's also an essay about zombies, and which is very cool. By the way, you should definitely check that out. And then a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to give it all away, but it's all in there.
The cool thing about that zombie essay is it's actually written by a renowned expert on plagues. And so he knows what he's talking about, and he wrote it before the pandemic started. And one of the things he touched on in it is what happens when a plague gets out of control and people can't stop it and it mutates. And then, like 2 months later, after we edited it, we're like, wait, what? It actually is starting? Wait, yeah, it was a weird timing.
Yeah,
it's a great title too.
Crazy.
It's a great title. The plague of the zombies. Clever.
Thank you.
It's a fun read. The whole book is a fun read. It's not meant to be scary and spooky. It's a lot of fun. Total fun.
And we should note that if you notice something that's not in the list Lou read, you won't find Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers and that sort of thing, because the focus of the book is on classic monsters. So we went up until around the early to mid 70s. There were a couple of exceptions. Like I was covering the Toho era of Godzilla, which went past the cutoff of early 70s. And we have an essay at the end about Monster Squad, because it's like a modern, like an 80s remake of Universal Monsters. But that was, very few exceptions. For the most part, it was the beginning of cinema. Actually, before that, because you're talking about like the novels of Frankenstein and Dracula and so forth, up to the early 70s.
That's cool.
Yeah, because there's a literary discussion in the books too, not just cinema and television.
Yeah.
So, guys, you mentioned the Addams Family. What do you think of the upcoming remake with Tim Burton?
Yeah, did you guys hear that news?
Yeah, I did. I'm happy about that. I think that's his wheelhouse. I just hope he doesn't use the same 5 actors he's been using for the last.
So
Johnny
you don't
Depp
want
and Helena Bonham Carter as Morticia, and exactly.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
I just like.
I am.
No.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just like to see new people in the roles. I know we mentioned Oscar Isaac was doing the voice of Gomez in the was the animated one or something.
Yeah, the animated. Yep.
That's getting a sequel too.
Yeah, I like him, and I think if they can cast him in the Gomez role, I mean, I think he could totally pull it off.
I don't know. I think Johnny Depp could pull off Morticia pretty well.
Well, we just talked about this on the show last week. We talked about it. It was news.
That's right. Yes.
And we thought if you're gonna bring Johnny Depp in, he should be Cousin It, like as a funny cameo. Like underneath that is Johnny Depp,
right? Or
would be funny.
Or Thing.
Yeah, I think he would do it too. You know what I mean? Or he could as his hand as Thing. But
I actually would love to see him as Grandmama.
Yeah, that would be funny too. You're right.
Yes, sure. Why not?
I honestly have not been following it, but look, I'm a Tim Burton fan. Especially his older stuff, because let's be honest, the last couple haven't been up to the snuff of the earlier stuff. But so I think if anyone was going to do a remake of Addams Family, he'd be good. I loved at least the first of the 2 Raul Julia movies. I thought it was wonderful.
Yes,
and so I know we've seen that it can be remade without us saying what that's not the Addams Family. It can be done. It's been done.
Sure.
If it's done with the biggest problem I had with Johnny Depp's, I'm sorry, not Johnny Depp, with I guess Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, it's the same thing these days. But I guess my biggest problem with Tim Burton's approaches to adapting something that's been done is he's not reverential. If you look at Planet of the Apes and right, and it's Willy Wonka, and it's just it's not what it should be. So my concern is he's going to alter the Addams Family. That's my big problem. Otherwise, I'm going in with an open mind because I'm just excited about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaliyah.
Oh,
I saw you were getting ready to say something.
I was because I was not a fan, and maybe this is because Beetlejuice terrified me as a child. Like I was petrified. It's still, I think, to this day, I can't watch Beetlejuice.
I love Beetlejuice. Yeah. You be careful.
I just watched it last week. How funny!
You be careful with
Beetlejuice.
You be careful with Beetlejuice. You don't mess with Beetlejuice. The movie.
I'll say it 3 times if you're not careful. I'm going to say it 3 times.
Oh, there you go. And the cartoon. Yeah. The cartoon was good too. And the musical was also good.
For you,
huh?
Did your dad dress up like?
Oh my gosh!
He didn't dress up as Beetlejuice, but he did used to do things like say it 3 times. This is also the man that threatened to put excuse me. He told my younger sister, because she's a huge Supernatural fan, that he was going to take all of the salt out of the house so she couldn't use it.
Oh, that's just wrong.
How else are you going to bar your doors and windows?
That's just wrong.
Yeah,
if not for cooking reasons, for protection reasons. That's just awful.
Here's a thought exercise for you. If you said Beetlejuice 3 times and then Candyman 3 times and walked out of the house, what would happen?
I think they'd become fast friends, but that's
yeah. And then you're just screwed
and then you're just screwed because then now you got it's 2-on-1. And
between that and Bloody Mary, I mean,
yeah. It turns out Beetlejuice is allergic to bees, and it's the whole thing.
Oh, it's a whole thing.
But I only watched it as a kid.
That's a crossover movie I would pay to see.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure he tried to eat the bees. I don't think
you're probably
right.
He did
do
that.
Fly into the
right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
a bee house of ill repute.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Beetlejuice is great. I mean, you gotta get Catherine O'Hara. Like the cast of that is what makes that movie so.
Really, yes.
They're so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to make sure that, so as we approach kind of the halfway point era, I want to make sure that we leave some time here to really dig in to the universal monsters, right? So there's several essays in the book about those. I actually, several of those are what I actually started with when I was reading it. And the universal monsters just are, I mean, they're universal. I mean, it's a great company for them to be a part of because they are such an iconic part of monster lore in our nostalgia, especially because most people, when you say Dracula, Bela Lugosi's image is what people conjure up in their heads a lot of times, you know.
Usually, yeah.
Now, if you say vampires, that may say something completely different depending on which generation you grew up in. But Dracula, Bela Lugosi is just, he comes to mind. Frankenstein, who comes to mind, right? So you get Boris Karloff is the image because every Frankenstein since then was based on that original, you know, and there's none of them are quite the same. I mean, even when Lon Chaney took over Frankenstein, you know, he didn't have the false tooth out. So there's no like gap in his, you know, he just had a different look. He looked like Frankenstein.
With a good dental plan.
Yeah. With a good dental plan. And maybe had put on a few extra pounds. Yeah. You know, he's been, you know,
Frankenstein who listened to his dentist and flossed.
Yeah, but so let's talk a little bit about the universal monsters. What's again, they are so iconic. Why do you think that is? Why have they become the standard for what we assume those monsters look like?
I think a big part of it is if you put yourself in the mindset of somebody back in the 30s. This wasn't something they were seeing in cinema before. I mean, it may seem quaint now to watch the original Dracula or the original Frankenstein because, you know, we live in an era where movies like, you know, The Ring, you know, exist. It's not as scary now, but at the time, this was really scary. This was something they hadn't seen. Even Gojira. I mean, it's. We look back now, and you know there are several early Godzilla movies where he really does look like the Cookie Monster, but with a tail. But at the time that it came out, people hadn't seen this before. I think the reason these old movies, particularly Universal Monsters, really hit an audience is that they couldn't believe what they were looking at, and also because it was pretty macabre. You know, I mean, like you're talking about an audience that just couldn't believe that they were seeing dead things walking around on the screen. You know, like where were they running into this? You know, there's also there's the history of Penny Dreadfuls that it was building upon. You know, like there was an audience for it that would have responded to this.
So I actually just finally one of the essays in the book really goes through them and talks about how it's basically was our first cinematic universe, if you will, where we right now any movie that has a sequel, we're all like, ooh, what's the cinematic universe going to be? Like it suddenly becomes a thing, right? Just because Marvel did it and DC made a couple movies, we're like, what's the DC universe? Turns out they don't have one. They're just making DC movies and people are making this up on their own. Right. But Marvel was like, yeah, we're going to tie all these movies together. Well, Universal was kind of the first one to do that with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, right?
Yeah, and the caveat would be they were sort of because the continuity, as Joe's essay points out, is kind of completely non-existent.
Yeah, I found his essay really, really enlightening and insightful because that was one of the things that was amazing to me was in thinking about that being the first kind of shared universe. They were winging it the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like they weren't, because you can. It's arguably true. You can see some of the Marvel movies in the MCU, and they're like, "Oh, this is obviously just kind of a placeholder for the Avengers movie coming out, or whatever else." But like all these movies were all done individually, and they just happened to go, "Hey, you know what? You wrote the last one. What do you think about?" I love the story about the Frankenstein meets Wolfman thing. About how it was kind of like a joke, it was
Frankenstein Wolf's the Meat Man.
You're right, Wolf's the Meat Man. And, it was like, hey, and then like, oh, you know what? You changed that title, and go ahead and buy that car.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, that was a really, I love that and you're right. The continuity, like one of the things he points out in the essay is, and I Peacock network, their streaming actually has all of them on there right now. And so I've been binging them in anticipation of this. So I was watching through those. And so when I read his essay, like it's still fresh. And it's interesting to binge them because, again, these came out several years after each other. But when you binge them, like I literally just finished one and then I watched another one, you know what I mean, the next day. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? And they're to the point where, like, by the time you get to, I don't even remember which one it was, but either Ghost of Frankenstein or Son of Frankenstein, the lab is now over top of a sulfur pit. That was never in the other movies. Like those kind of continuity things are just like, you know,
which is funny because it's clearly supposed to be the same lab,
no doubt. And so the other, go ahead, Lou.
I was gonna say, you gotta remember back then, you know, things weren't so consumable. Like the video wasn't out, and so you went to the movies, you saw a Frankenstein film. The next one that came out, you weren't necessarily thinking about or remembering the last one. You just wanted to go to a movie and be entertained. Sure. And that was fun. And that's what I think we missed that a lot today. Like we don't go to the movies just to have, and that's why I'm always arguing for the DC stuff, because that's kind of what they've been doing. And people get all aggravated because there's no shared universe. But like, hey, I don't shared universe. Like what? Who cares? But they didn't think about continuity, and they didn't care. It was all about getting money and getting people in seats, making money, and let's get some movies out and let's keep the momentum going. I think they did a good job of it, you know, back then.
Nobody ran immediately to Twitter after seeing Son of Frankenstein and complained about whether or not, you know, like
there's no way he's the son of Frankenstein. There's no resemblance at all. Even though Frankenstein is made of
hashtag
body
not
parts.
My Frankenstein.
Right, exactly.
Like there was none of that garbage. And you know, release the whale cut. You know, like that happened. But I one of the things that I found interesting in binging. One of the things that I found we should totally
do it.
We should totally do that.
The hashtag has to be created. Release the whale cut.
Yeah, we should do that. I think one of the most interesting things about the non-continuity about all the Universal movies, not just the monster movies, but you could probably see this in any of the movies, is back then in the studio system, the actors were under contract with certain companies, right? And so they appeared in all of that company's movies. And if you're binging the Universal monster movies, especially the Frankenstein ones, it's funny to see the same actors show up as different people in the very next movie.
Yeah, like why is Dracula Igor? What's going on? I'm confused.
Oh my gosh, that was the funniest one. Yeah. But I was telling Lou when we talked about this the first time, like there's this iconic scene in Frankenstein when, you know, the man is bringing his daughter and she's been drowned and he's walking through town and everybody's partying. And as he walks by, everybody stops. It's just this, I mean, for such, you know, we look back at some of these movies and think they're a little bit cheesy, but this scene is so well done. Like it's just so great. And he's walking through with his, you know, limp daughter. And it's just like heart wrenching to watch that scene. And, you know, he gets up there and it's this great scene. And in the very next movie, so again, I'm binging them. In the very next movie, that actor is on the city council as a guy named Leo Newweiler or something. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm glad that farmer kind of has
he's come up. We've moved up in the world.
City council now. I feel so bad for him after losing his daughter. He's at least, you know, and then I see him again later. He's still in the council. He's in the council on all four movies, even though in like the third one, when Bela Lugosi is Igor has Frankenstein kill him. But yet he's still on the council of the fourth movie. Just stuff like that. It was hilarious.
Because he's another monster.
But who cares, right? It was just,
Doesn't matter.
Well, I mean,
it's a subtext. Right. Yeah, he's another monster.
Well, I mean, think about it, because you know, you kind of hit it on the head with the continuity. These monsters at various times at the ends of these movies died.
Yeah.
And they would just, you know, oh, here they are. Did they just show up at the front step of the lab? Like, wait, but you.
Yeah. And in later movies, they didn't even try to explain it.
They didn't care. At that point, it was just like, you know.
There were times, he was brought back to life. There was an electric bolt. Eventually, it just becomes, he's here.
Yeah.
They never
Wait,
die.
didn't he fall in a pit? It doesn't matter. He's here.
Yeah, there he is. Well, I love the fact too. I didn't even realize this. And Jeff, I don't know if you've noticed, but the actor who played Van Helsing in Dracula, always basically played the same scientist character every time he
too. Yeah.
Right. He recurred.
Essay pointed that out.
Right. And that's kind of funny.
I wouldn't have caught that was him if I hadn't read it in this. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize it's the same guy.
Well, it's one of the fun things about Dark Shadows, which is based, largely, which draws a lot of its inspiration from Universal Monsters, is the fact that they reuse the actors. So basically, it's fitting, So much like what you're describing, you see there's one point where Thayer David is playing two characters in this same episode.
In the same episode, but it doesn't matter because A, he's Thayer David, so he's great, and B, it draws on the tradition of Universal Monsters. It was, if you're going to do Universal Monsters as a soap opera, of course you have people. Of course, Was he ever in the same scene with himself or no?
I'm trying to think. Was he?
Because that would have been
awesome. But Grayson Hall was actually in a scene in which she actually killed her other character.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
And how did they pull it off? Did they actually do like a split screen type of thing?
The show had about $1.87 budget, and $1.85 of it was spent on lunch.
Further back then.
So that means she killed a stuntman with a wig, and the stuntman never faced the camera.
No, they like to do effects where Barnabas would disappear, and he would have, in modern day terms, Photoshop artifact all around them, because it was, they basically would use what then was standard, pretty modern effects, but badly.
Sure.
and so you would end up seeing a really bad outline of whatever part of the studio he was standing in. In the case of Grayson Hall killing herself, it was a rare time in which they had to have pre-taped stuff. They didn't have the money for pre-taping on that show. So that would have been one of the rare times they would have had to.
All right, I gotta find this show now. It's not streaming anywhere, too, right? It's
I tried to find it.
It is actually. It's I own the set, so I don't know where it is, but I know that there's a Facebook group where people are discussing it as they're watching it, so I know it's streaming somewhere.
We gotta find that. Yeah, share that with us.
I'll find out for you.
That'd be great.
And then you're going to need a year to do it because there are 1,225 episodes.
I did look that up. I'm like, holy cow. Yeah, that's.
Are they hour-long episodes or like 40-minute?
Well, they're 15 minutes. They're half-hour episodes, but 15 minutes were spent selling soap to housewives. So
there you go.
Right. That's actually what the reason, why the show existed. So it's only about 15 minutes per episode now.
So what you're saying is anytime any character is bathed, they would mention the soap?
Well, the funny thing that you mentioned about bathing is I think the people in Collinsport, which is where the show takes place, must have been the stinkiest people ever.
Because they never bathed.
They never changed. And
same clothes every time.
Same clothes all the time. And there's no indication that they really went to bed, except occasionally you'd see them wearing a nightgown. It would seem like one day might last 3 months of storytelling. And so did they bathe? I'm sure the actors did. I'm sure the clothes were laundered, but the characters, I wouldn't have wanted to hang out at Collinwood. So
now I wonder if the whole series of episodes happened in one day.
There's a website that works this out. The show's really inconsistent. Yeah. Okay. The show will say things like this happened 2 months ago, but if you look at the evidence on screen, it was yesterday. So
that's too funny.
But that's how soap operas in general work. I'm sure it's true for One Life to Live. It's just
right. Yep, that's funny.
So the other thing I noticed while binging through every Frankenstein movie this week is I know that Utah. I'm gonna have to ask you, Aaliyah. Have you ever seen the movie Young Frankenstein? It's a Mel Brooks comedy.
If not, you have to.
Aaliyah, have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
I have not.
Okay, that's required viewing.
We're gonna get you to see that. So it's a comedy, Mel Brooks. It's a parody of Frankenstein movies. But what I didn't realize because I'd never seen all four, was that he literally takes
took them all. Yeah,
the best parts of those movies, and they're in there. There's the inspector character who has that wooden arm and he's doing this all the time. I thought, okay, that's hilarious. This is a funny thing Mel Brooks made up. That guy's in the movie. He's in the original movie. I was like, how is this not a comedy? That was in the second. Well, no, it wasn't The Bride. It was Son of Frankenstein, I think, that he's in.
Yeah,
because
third. I think it's the third.
Yeah, because he's
the third
hounding
one.
the son about like his dad's. They even do the dart game, and he
Yeah.
puts the darts in
yeah.
his arm
Oh, yeah.
and pulls them out and throws them. I'm like, this
yeah.
is exactly what this isn't. He didn't make up a parody.
Oh,
He
that's
just redid that
fantastic.
scene.
That's
It's so
fantastic.
funny.
Right, and the blind guy in the hut.
Yeah,
YouTube. Yep.
that was
that's-
another movie.
Yep.
One of my
So
favorite
great.
articles from Starlog from back in the 1980s made a timeline of the Frankenstein films, and it included Young Frankenstein because it's so true to the movies, and it
It's
might as
beautiful.
well, Frankenstein might as well be part of the Frankenstein family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
it-
far as I'm concerned, it is. Especially now that they're all connected. It's
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
and that just shows you like the reverence that Mel Brooks had for those movies, right? Because there's no way if he was just making a comedy about a parody of the Frankenstein movie or the Frankenstein monster, I don't think he would have gone through that trouble to kind of have that knowledge and to have those homages in there. I mean, it made for a great movie. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. So, Universal recently tried to reboot their Universal universe with the Tom Cruise Mummy movie.
Bleh.
Kind of, yeah. So
you mean Mission
obviously that was-
Impossible in Egypt?
Yeah, obviously that did not do very well. But they were trying to create the cinematic universe. In fact, they picked a character it's rumored to be Russell Crowe's character, who's kind of like the professor.
I liked that casting. That sounded cool.
That he was going to kind of tie the movies together. They wouldn't necessarily be like Frankenstein meets Wolfman, but that he would be the connective tissue that said, oh, these all take place in the same world. What do you guys, so obviously that seemed to fail, and they kind of like said, okay, we're going to pretend we didn't do that. What do you guys think about them doing it again? But, and if they did it again, like what do you think would be the secret to that success to bring back the Universal monsters?
The secret would be, I don't know if it's a secret, but they have to, and Rich touched on this a minute ago or a few minutes ago, not do a complete retelling. Stay true to the source. Go back and, be faithful to what made these things popular in the first place. And do it well with really good directors, really good actors, not necessarily blockbusters. I don't need Tom Cruise. Thomas Cruise. I don't need him in the movie. I
Thomas.
it could be anybody. Just make it good. Make
Thomas the Talking Cruise Ship.
Yeah, we don't need that. Give me a story that
Nobody runs better than him.
Other than the story. I mean, if there's no good story, you're just blah, 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 nobody really cares about that. The thing that gave those movies their popularity they have is the little bit of heart they had inside them as well. Like, you really identify with Larry Talbot's Wolfman. He doesn't want this. He's struggling to get out of it, and that's what makes that movie great. If you don't have that, it's just a slasher film. It's just a crazy guy going around killing people. All right, well, that's fun too in a different sense, but that's not going to make the Universal monster shared universe work. Rise from the dead, as they say, and come back.
Yeah, agreed.
No, that totally makes sense. You're absolutely right.
I think to add on to what Lou said, I think that we're less likely to see a Musings on Monsters about the remakes. And I don't mean just from us. I mean, those films are less likely to inspire someone to come up with a book. Whereas The Wolfman, which Lou just discussed, is largely the reason this book exists. So The Wolfman and Frankenstein, because when Jim Beard, show the book, Jim Beard, back when he came up with the idea, his goal was to write an essay about the Wolfman. The tragedy that you guys know about prevented him from doing so. My friend Rob Nyman did it, but that and his wife's love of Frankenstein is the reason that this book even exists. And I can't imagine anybody saying, "My whole life I loved the Tom Cruise movie, and therefore I'm making a book."
Right.
So yeah.
Wait, which Tom Cruise movie is it? The one where he plays a young upstart that fights against all odds and wins in the end?
I believe it's the one where he runs.
Yeah, where he runs. He runs a lot.
Yeah, runs really fast.
So,
And by the
before
way,
we go ahead.
If Universal is listening, Rich and I are available for hire. So
There you go.
Absolutely. Well, and so
You can't tell from the image, but I have sideburns. I can play Larry Talbot. So.
there you go. Well,
They are listening, Lou.
They are listening.
They are.
Of course they are. Everybody listens.
In fact, the president of Universal Pictures listens to our show. Our one listener has been him all this time.
It's got a text from.
Oh no, that's about an extended warranty. Never mind.
Yeah.
We're making a movie.
Well, before we are coming up on the end of the show here, but before we do, I want you to talk a little bit, Rich, about what you just mentioned, a little bit about Jim, and tell us kind of what was the impetus for how this book started, and how we have this.
Although Lou and I are the editors, neither one of us came up with the idea. Our friend Jim Beard is a lifelong monster kid. And his wife Becky was as well. It's one of the big things they bonded on. And one of the things I discussed in the introduction is that we like to talk about soulmates and perfect matches. And most of us, most people don't truly meet soulmates. You may find someone that you get along great, but someone where like you're just perfectly matched. It's a rarity, and it's beautiful. It's why the movie Princess Bride exists. Well. And in Jim's case, he had that, and Becky was not just his wife, also his best friend, his writing partner, and the two of them bonded over their shared love of monsters. So Jim 2 years ago approached me, and as we had done other books together, and he said, I want to do a book about classic monsters. Would you be interested in editing it with me? And I said, I'd be honored. He said, I'm going to do an essay about why Larry Talbot is a hero, not a monster. And Becky's going to write about Dark Shadows. I said, this is great. So we lined up a bunch of writers. And Lou, I think you were in that initial lineup, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. And then tragedy struck, which was Becky ended up with a terminal form of cancer, and in a relatively short amount of time passed away, which was very, very sad. And understandably, Jim had to walk away from the book. And but weirdly enough, so did I. Right before that, before I had any idea that was happening, I had a schedule conflict. And but as soon as I heard about this, I came back. And because I'd already worked with Lou as well, I asked Lou to step in, and we wanted to honor what Jim started. And Jim wrote the foreword and discussed briefly his love of Becky and their shared love of monsters. And it's touching, and I just hope that when he reads, I'm hoping he already read it, but if he hasn't, I'm hoping when he reads the book that he thinks we did him justice, and that it's what that the book came out the way he wanted it to. It was important to him that it be about old monsters because that's what he grew up on. And I hope that he thinks that this is what he was looking for,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I read that in the introduction. I thought that was really sweet. And, that was and so, yeah, I hope that's why I wanted to make sure people kind of heard that story too. But it is a great book. I'm totally enjoying it. When Amazon decides to let me have it back, because, like I said, I loaned it via Kindle to Aaliyah, and Aaliyah. Well, no, and I said, well, can you reject it? She can't reject it. And so if you don't accept it, 7 days later, I'll get it back.
No, here.
7 days. Now, somebody mentioned The Ring earlier, and now I'm worried what's going to happen when it comes back.
7 days.
But
here, Leah, here. I'm going to get this.
Jeff, we'll get you a copy. Don't worry.
That's all right. Well, no, it'll be back, and then I'll finish it off. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I know Utah feels the same. When I finally am able to finish it and fully loan it to Aaliyah, she's going to enjoy it too, I'm sure. But I do recommend that you guys run out there and get a copy of this book. If you have the same kind of nostalgia that we do for monsters, it's phenomenal. Lou or Rich, tell them where they can find it.
In Lou's mouth.
Yeah, I was going to say Lou's mouth. Yeah.
It's in
You don't want that copy.
No, it's
Talk about monster.
I think Amazon's the best place to get it right now.
Okay.
It'll be quick. It's like 2 days. You got it in your hands.
Absolutely.
But in case you're someone who takes a stance on Amazon, go to sequart.org and you'll find the landing page for the book, because you can get the ISBN there and buy it somewhere else.
That's true.
Excellent point.
And if you are listening to this as a podcast form, which is going to come later, I will put the link to it in the show notes so you can go and check it out. Again, it's a great book. It came out at the perfect time, just in time for Halloween. Of course, Halloween is now past. We were trying to do this show right before Halloween, but lucky number 13. But it's gone so much better now, I think, since we're able to get Rich and Aaliyah and Utah in here instead of just me and Lou. Nobody wanted to hear just me and Lou.
You know, it's more than just Halloween. It's more than just Halloween, though. It's the 90th anniversary of the first Universal Monsters movie, and it's also Godzilla's birthday.
It's whose birthday?
Godzilla's birthday.
Oh, that's right.
He's a young 67, right? 67?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He doesn't look a day over 6 million.
He does not. I don't know. I don't know what his secret is, but
atomic fire,
probably.
Moisturize.
Atomic fire. I wouldn't recommend it though.
It takes care of those wrinkles, though.
All right. I want a big thank you to my guests, Lou and Rich. Thank you guys so much for coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure when you guys come around. Lou's going to come back and join us when the Mandalorian season is finished, and we're going to talk and recap the Mandalorian. That'll be mid-December, I think, is when that happens. And Rich is going to come back in January and talk with us after Discovery ends. So their last episode is in January. Star Trek Discovery. Yeah, I should have said Star Trek just in case anybody was like, "What Discovery?"
He just means a journey of self-discovery. Where I'm on one right now, and
and we're gonna find out how he's doing in January.
But we might figure out what he looks like.
It's been tough, guys. But let me tell you about my childhood. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks as always to Utah and Aaliyah for being my ever-present co-hosts. I'm so glad this worked out to where you guys could be here to do this. It was not the same without you guys on Friday. I don't want that to happen again. I was so lonely. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Always make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, at World Gun Geek. You can see the stuff down below if you're watching us live. But basically, we're at World Gun Geek pretty much everywhere. So check us out. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And we'll see you guys next time. Let's play the creepy version of our theme song on the way out. We'll see you guys next time. Here we go.
The Podcast is Real is a World Gone Geek production.